welcome to the Economy of the Collapse, Episode 3, Canada, China, and the Strategic Dependence. So we're going to have our little monologue and then we're going to discuss. Over the past few years, Canada has quietly moved into a new strategic position, one defined by resources, capital, and external influence. Not through a single decision, but through a series of structural moves. Start with the critical mineral. Canada holds significant reserve of lithium, nickel, cobalt, and rare earth elements, all essential for batteries, electric vehicle, defense system, and advanced computing. At the same time, China dominates the downstream segment. Estimates vary, but China controls roughly 60 to 70% of global rare earth mining and up to 85 to 90% of processing and refining capacity. That means that even when minerals are extracted elsewhere, they often depend on Chinese infrastructure to enter global supply chain. Canada's response has been aggressive. In recent years, the federal government launched a national critical minerals strategy and committed billions in funding, tax credit, and project support. Major investments have been announced across Ontario, Quebec, and the North, including battery supply for the supply chain, mining project, and processing facilities. But extraction is only part of the equation. These projects require infrastructure. We're talking about roads, transmission line, logistic corridors, port access, all in very remote area. In many cases, these infrastructure don't exist yet. So we have to build that. And that raises a second layer of questions. Who financed that? Who built it? Who ultimately integrated into global supply chain? Is it the Canadian that pays for a road to go to a Chinese mining infrastructure? Now place that in the broader Canada-China relationship. Trade between the two countries remains substantial, even though Mark Carney said it was the biggest threat to Canada. China is consistently one of Canada's largest trading partners, particularly for natural resources and agricultural export. At the same time, Canada has imposed and faced trade restrictions in sectors like agriculture, steel, and electric vehicle. So it's not really a stable relationship. Of course, China is so much stronger than Canada. So we're trying here to have some sort of a managed tension, which is not sustainable. At the investment level, the picture is even more complex. Over the last decade, Chinese state-linked and private firms have invested in Canadian energy, mining, and infrastructure assets. In response, Ottawa has tightened its rule. Under the Investment Canada Act, foreign investment in critical minerals are now subject to enhanced national security review. In 2022, the federal government ordered several Chinese companies to divest from Canadian critical mineral firm. That's a clear signal. Canada is trying to reduce exposure. But here the structural reality. Even with stricter rules, Canada is still operating inside a global system where China holds a dominant position for the rare earth mineral. Processing, refining, supply chain integration. You can restrict ownership, you can review investment, but you can't easily replace infrastructure that took decades to build. So this is where the influence becomes less visible. It's not necessarily about direct control. It's about dependency. And when you have a country that relies on external system to process, finance, distribute its strategic resources, its decision-making space narrows. Not dramatically, but incrementally. Now add a political layer. Over the past 2 years, Canadian Intelligence Agency and parliamentary inquiries have publicly raised concerns about foreign interference. And not just from China, but China has been a central focus. From the allegation that we saw attempt to influence electoral processes, pressure on diaspora communities, including police station, illegal police station, indirect support to political actors. These claims have been contested and are politically sensitive, but they've been serious enough to trigger national inquiries and intelligence briefing at the highest levels of government. So now you have three overlapping dynamics: resource dependency, economic interdependence, and foreign influence concerns. Individually, each is manageable. Together, they create friction. This is not about proving corruption. It's about identifying exposure in the system, because systems rarely fail through a single event. They shift when constraints accumulate, when decisions become influenced even slightly by external dependency, when policy is shaped not only by domestic priorities, but by what is economically or structurally possible. Canada today is not controlled by external actors, but it is not operating in isolation either. And that's the point. That's the point that needs to be understood. The question is no longer, is there influence in the Canadian political system? The question is, how much room is left for independent decision-making inside the system of global dependency with all of that influence? That's where the story is. How much does the government is able to make good decisions for Canadians, for middle-class Canadians, for all Canadians? And that's what we are talking about here at the economy of the collapse. And those questions are very important because we saw that the Prime Minister has been traveling a lot to China, like a lot, like even twice in a month, has declared a new economic order while he was sitting there. We also saw that Brookfield was always present, which is troublesome, to say the least, considering the interest that Mark Carney has in Brookfield, and considering the fact that in the past all those interests haven't been disclosed, and the Chinese wall inside the decision-making process was not present. That's what was reported in the media. But to be sure, when we then see like a major investment announcement to build roads, which of course is said to create jobs and all of that, and then you see that the road is going to lead into a mine that is owned by a Chinese state company, it starts to accumulate, to say the least. And I think we need to be aware of what is happening in the context of a tough position vis-a-vis the United States, where we should negotiate with the United States. It's our biggest partner. It's a democratic country. We have the same history and culture and religion background, and we share a physical border. The U.S. is actually with NORAD saving us from a Chinese or Russian invasion up north right now and in the future. So we should be very nice, and we're not. Instead, we turn around and we go to China, and then we say, oh, we could become part of the EU, which is, if you think about it, it's a bit ridiculous to say. But I mean, at least if you say that you could consider becoming part of the EU, definitely you could be part of the United States, which I think a lot of Canadians would love to be able to travel freely throughout the US and do business and use the US dollar and whatnot. And I mean, as soon as you say I'm willing to do it with the EU, I mean, why not doing it with the US, which is the neighbor? So I mean, de facto, we're consuming the music, we're consuming the movie, we're going to the fast food restaurant, going to Costco. Even those who have the TDS, you can see them park at Costco over the weekend. So, I mean, when you reach that point, why not just embrace it and do it right? So at least be honest enough if you say that you consider the EU to consider the US, and that's in the context also where Alberta wants to separate and join the US, and all of that is happening while China's influence in Canada is growing. And we saw the US acted in Venezuela, acted in Iran, acted in Panama to remove the Chinese influence, and then they turn around and it's coming into Canada. I mean, if you are an American, you can understand the dissatisfaction with that situation. In Canada, the reality is it's a small country that cannot hold its ground face to face with China. So it's like a predator relation that we can build with China. And the only protection that we have is the US. So the only reason we're even able to negotiate with China, it's because we have the United States as a neighbor. So that's the point I wanted to make today with episode 3 of the economy of the collapse. We're trying to raise various issues. And in the first kind of part of this series, we have like the little monologue, and then we kind of discuss a little bit more in depth, and that's going to lead us then for a full-blown podcast with a guest and whatnot to go more in deep. But at least we're going to lay the ground a little bit on the key subject, so that we can have that in mind when we then go and ask questions and whatnot. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.